And I find that's why 6 toes are... It's definitely better to have 6 toes than 5 on each foot.
No, I would do that. If that was covered by my plan, I'd do that.
You would add a toe?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
100%.
It's all about stability.
Mm. Yeah, and I'll take it. And this toe goes on the heel. Like, that's the thing.
Oh, like a raptor? No, the raptors don't have toes on their heels.
It could be like a little raptor. I know what you're talking about.
Like a
talon.
cat, like a little dew claw. I want a dew claw toe.
Yeah, that's what we're trying.
That's evidence of witchcraft. I think that will burn you at the stake.
They don't do that anymore, I think. For now.
But you don't know.
Your confidence is through the roof on that one. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for pulling us together, Doug.
It's good to be here. And it's good to think about the past and think about choices that we've made. Would you say that you gentlemen have made some choices?
Oh. I don't think it's good.
Don't make Ron go back.
Okay.
That's behind me.
Well, I have a question to lead us in today, as we often do. When was the time that you experienced a situation that needed to be covered up? Mm-hmm. Debatable if it even needs to be covered up at the end of the day, right? Mm-hmm. I think honesty is always the best policy, but I think that the human experience often leads down that rabbit hole of cover-up situations. Or maybe if you haven't been a part of it, has there ever been a time that you've seen a cover-up that just continues to get worse and worse and worse?
I'm sorry to disappoint you both, but I have been involved with a cover-up. I have initiated a cover-up, a conspiracy to withhold information. I think this is my first cover-up. My first cover-up was I was a young child, a toddler. I don't know, maybe 4 or 5.
Unbelievable.
Something around there.
Wow.
Already started.
Yeah.
Sounds like advanced placement.
Yeah.
Cover-up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we had this like metal, like die-cast replica of the USS Enterprise from the popular American science fiction program.
The aircraft carrier?
I think we're talking Star Trek.
This is the Star Trek one. Yeah, I did not yet engage with war machines at that time. But this is it was the Enterprise from Next Generation, and the like saucer part of the ship would come off, and it was like all just solid metal, so you can kind of stick them together. And I was playing with it, and my brother Zach wanted it, who was younger than me. I'm pretty sure. I don't remember all the details because I was the one that got away with it. But anyways, somehow this metal saucer fell from our hands and landed on his toe, like instantly breaking his toe, and it was like the toenail fell
That's why
off.
he doesn't have 6 toes anymore.
Yeah. Exactly. This is why I say always take another toe. You never know what could happen.
Do you mean to rhyme that? That was nice.
Some things just work. So anyways, he had a broken toe and he was super sore. And I think I threatened him to do not tell mom about what happened here.
So he walks with a limp to this day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So she saw his toe and she's like, what happened? And I think he covered for me. And I think I lied. I was like, Zach, clumsy Zach, he's so stupid. He dropped the toy on his foot.
And you insulted him.
Yeah. And then I think Zach was like, that's right. I dropped the toy on my foot. And I think it was, I don't know how long that lasted, because I think everyone in my family knows this story, and it's like my original mark of duplicity that has lived with me ever since. And so I don't know how long it lasted. I don't think it lasted super long. I think my mom was like, Zach's not that dumb. Wow. Yeah.
Shout out to Zach for not being a snitch even on himself.
Zach has always been there for me, honestly. He should have snitched many a time.
Yeah.
But he's in that way, the sin is his too, because he is complicit in these crimes.
Yeah. That's rough.
Agree?
Yeah. I feel bad for the guy, but I'll be looking after his feet from here on out. And make sure.
Someone needs to.
Yeah,
he only wears steel-toed boots now.
Absolutely.
From 3 to now.
I accidentally step on his foot. I'm so sorry, Zach. I know what this is like for you. Yeah. That's it. Don, you got anything?
I've lived a spotless life, so I really I'm kind of in trouble.
It's good.
But I can think of one time when someone else was duplicitous on my behalf.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's safe now. I mean, so this happened in the 7th grade.
I hope it is.
My English teacher, Mrs. Collier. So if you're an uncannibal Mrs. Collier, I'm sorry for what I'm about to say, but I suspect that you're not. We had notebook checks, and one of the notebook check pages it was dittoed, so like that purple, smelly stuff. We were supposed to get our parents to sign once a week, I think. That they had checked our homework and seen that we were up to date, etc. And Mrs. Collier made one mistake, and what she did was she said, "Sometimes kids try to fool me with this, and they have their parents sign it, and it's all the same pen, and I can tell the parents signed it all at the same time." Well, I hadn't had my mom sign my signature page, so I asked her to sign it all at once right before it was due, and I had 6 different pens, and I just rotated them in and out.
Wow!
And she used a different pen every time, and I got away with it. So
true conspiracy.
And you guys have never met my mom, of course, but she is a saint. So yeah. I'm actually a little bit prouder of the fact that I got her to go along with it than the fact that I did it. So
she wasn't like, Donnie, why all the pens?
No. I told her why. So.
Oh, this one's the ink's dry.
Yeah,
she knew this one a shake. Yeah. Try this one.
Yeah.
Don's criminal enterprise started that day.
So it was perfect. Like there was no way you could tell. It was as if every week she had a different pen in her hand.
Really solid record, considering that only started in junior high. Mm-hmm. We've got Ron, who's a true criminal at 4 years old.
Yeah, come back when you've lived a little.
That's true.
Yeah, or go back. I don't know. It's hard to say.
Next time around.
Okay.
Start earlier.
Mine was being tremendously hungry as a young 3-year-old, I believe, running around in my kitchen. My mom is making scrambled eggs, leaves them on the side of the plate. I sneak one. She says, "Please stop taking the eggs. We're going to all eat together." And what she had done is she was putting pads of butter on the side of the plate. And it looked like scrambled eggs. And so I ran for a second one when she wasn't looking, and then just put a gigantic pad of butter in my mouth instead of scrambled eggs. And then before I even had recognized that I was eating butter instead of eggs, I'm running to my room and I'm hearing her call after me, "Did you grab another one? Did you grab another one?" And I hid behind this very miniature basketball hoop that was there, and in my room, it was like a Fisher-Price basketball hoop. And as I bit into the pad of butter, I actually was so disgusted the fact that I was just eating this mesh of I guess
gelatinous,
fat and salt. I almost vomited, and I learned my lesson by accident. I don't think my mom was quite laughing, but I remember that there wasn't a punishment immediately afterwards, because she ran into my room, saw my face as I was eating butter, and she's like, "That's right. That's butter, not eggs. You should have listened." And I guess I tried to cover it up by just sneaking in like the little solid snake that I was, and take the butter off of the plate.
I love that.
I got mine.
You were the child who had to be told to stop taking eggs.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, I still am. Don't catch me on Easter, I'll tell you that. It's bad news.
You don't like butter?
I love it on things. And I think my palate is advanced enough now I could just go directly after the stick.
No, I can't.
Yeah, I can't either.
You guys would go straight to the stick.
I'm always, every time that I go to the fair and see that they have fried butter as an option, I get really grossed out.
Have you tried it?
No, I can't.
Yeah.
I just can't imagine. And I'm probably, because of my childhood experience, can't imagine it.
Arctic Explorers do it. It's high density calories, so you chew up.
That's great for them.
Yeah, high fat diet. I don't blame them.
So why are you making us uncover our past sins?
Because sometimes a whole country needs to unveil their past. And actually,
finally going there.
this country needed to reveal their present. That was really the issue. Today we're talking about the Chernobyl disaster of 1986. How familiar are we with the topic?
I'd say relatively familiar.
Of the three of us, I was the only one here, right?
Well, yeah,
It was 86.
most
3 years
familiar.
earlier. Yeah. All right, you win. Don's going to be taking over at this point, but thank you, folks.
You can tell us what it was like. What was it like to get the transatlantic emissions landing on your doorstep?
Like, we didn't know, it was new. It was actually a little bit scary because, like, it was one of the things that the 1980s were a scary time to be a kid, and with the Cold War kind of, having existed for so long. But then you've got like the Day After Tomorrow movie came out, right? And like high stress. Like I think I've told you guys before, I have memories of waking up in the middle of the night and having to go downstairs to talk to my parents about the fact that the Russians are going to kill us all.
Right.
And like as a 7 or 8 year old.
Yeah.
So yeah, the fact that there was actually a nuclear disaster, and maybe there's going to be nuclear winter, and the particles are going to come across the ocean, and like what's going to happen, and everyone's going to mutate. And there was like real fear about how it was going to actually play out. So different, I think, than the Fukushima disaster, because like it was not the first one.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So like, yes, that was bad and terrible, but nobody was afraid that we were going to have mutant wolves eating us or whatever. Right. So.
And that is the direction that we're going, because these mutant wolves have made it to the United States, and I want us to be safe. And so
I saw this insane TikTok about Chernobyl. I need to talk about it.
That's exactly right. Counterintelligence just coming right at you.
But in case someone doesn't know what the Chernobyl disaster is, we probably should go back to what Chernobyl, like, what is Chernobyl? Where is Chernobyl?
Yeah, so we are looking at a town that is currently located in Ukraine. And on April 26, 1986, at 1:23 in the morning, there was a nuclear power plant that was running a test that had a tremendous failure, which led to the destruction and release of one of the cores of this power plant, which released the most nuclear energy into the atmosphere of the world in the history of man. My fascination on this started because I was watching The Last of Us. I learned about Craig Mazin, who created that show, and I looked up that he is lauded for his production of the show Chernobyl, which is a 5-episode miniseries about the disaster and the consequences of what had happened. I'm not really going to be touching on the show as much, although I highly recommend it because it's a masterpiece, I think, in its direction. But the thing that I find most fascinating is this event. It's interesting. Gorbachev at the time said that this is that he looks at the end of the Soviet Union as this event. Like he very much signals that this was the event that kind of ended the Soviet Union. And so that's a potential way that we can take this topic today. But it is known as the worst nuclear disaster in history, not just in terms of costs and casualties, but also its far-reaching effects on science, the environment, and the way that we do life and global consciousness. Good summary? Anything I'm leaving out before we dig in?
It was reactor number 4.
It was reactor number 4. And we almost blew all of them too. That's a little spoiler there.
But we didn't. So
we
credit
didn't.
where it's due. And the other ones continued to run.
Yes.
Today?
I think till like the early 2000s. Yeah.
I believe so. Yeah. It's currently in the sarcophagus, which we'll get to in a moment, where there is a giant structure that has been built over it since then that actually is breaking down to the point that they've built another one over it because there's been so much damage.
And that keeps the ghosts in, right?
Yes. Yeah, ghosts are there at all times.
Green ghosts.
Yeah, absolutely. And there have been many a video game that has been made about this area. And yes, the potential for ghosts and mutants and all of these things. But today I'm going to try to base it as much as we can in reality.
Oh,
sorry about that. Yeah, it's uncanny enough.
I was going to say that the sort of video game and science fiction media that is spun off from the Chernobyl disaster is sort of where I'm probably actually most familiar with it. I feel like it definitely sort of post-nuclear fiction is a part of almost all modern 20th century societies, but I feel like it colors Russian and Soviet Union media in a very different way than Americans do, and I feel like that somehow links back to the.
You have to have the image. You have to have the empty Ferris wheel. That's what signals to you that there's been a radiation problem.
Exactly,
it's part of the zeitgeist,
and it's more real in their sci-fi, right? We're talking about video games what's the? I can't even think of their names.
Stalker.
Yeah, Stalker series, right? Which
Chernobyl.
Is also based on the short story, right? Roadside Picnic and that kind of stuff. It's more horror based than American post-nuclear fiction, which is more fun based, or something. I think some Americans are it would be sick if the world ended. Whereas I think other nations that have more actual local disasters, no, it would not. It would be the worst thing ever.
Yeah. There's quite the cast of characters and people that we have to mention going into this, and so I definitely would appreciate any clarifying questions. If we start to lose track of who was Viktor, who was Anatoly, as we go through, please let me know if I begin to spin that the wrong direction. But I do need to introduce a few people because this event, the thing that is interesting to, at least to me, to think about is where some of the fault lies, because there's kind of a chain of events that lead to Reactor 4 going down that kind of take different directions and people have very strong opinions about. I don't plan to make any gigantic ones today, but there are some facts that we can kind of bring forward and then start to talk about it from there. So Viktor Brukhanov was the plant manager who oversaw the construction of the plant. And as early as 1979, when these were being put together, and they were testing these reactors, which we'll get to in a minute, there's actually KGB documents that show that there were instability issues within the reactors and the ways that they had developed the technology. For anybody who's not familiar, these are fission cores, and the way that they work is you're essentially putting uranium deposits inside of them that have neutrons that are bouncing off of the outside. These neutrons collide with the other neutrons that are next to it in the uranium chemicals. And there is a combination of safety rods that are inserted into the core that are tipped in boron that slow down this reaction, which interacts with water. The steam creates the power. The heat from the steam creates the power, and this is how you power a city in this case. And nuclear power was a pride of the Soviet Union because they had claimed that they had the greatest power sources. They're showing an advance in technology, and we're also dealing with the Cold War, of course. And so anything that's technology, the idea of it being supreme in some way is a very big part of the identity of a country, and also part of the competition in war. That resources and technology became just as important as the potential for bodies on a field. So the plant manager did not initially test the safety of these cores. They just started operating immediately. And he was recorded saying that in the USSR, you were often rewarded for finishing your work early. Literally the government would give you bonuses if you were able to, because again, speed is of the essence, making sure that you get to things first. And he said that this is fairly standard practice. He was recorded saying this is fairly standard practice within the USSR, that the things that you're building and the projects that you're finishing, you would try to finish as quickly as possible for the financial benefit and it being good for the state.
He speaks really good English. For a Russian guy.
He speaks some great translated Russian that I'm hoping is as close as we can get from what I was able to get from subtitles of watching the trial that he was in. So hopefully I'm not doing him too poor of justice here. But he ultimately bears some of the responsibility for this accident. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison, which is crazy considering what we're going to unveil about him. But Viktor actually was released for good behavior and continued to live in the Soviet Union following. There's another character, Nikolai Fomin, who was the chief engineer for this facility and others. He was also held accountable for postponing this test. So there was a very critical moment in which they haven't tested it, and then 86 rolls around. They're going to test this reactor during the day, but you notice it just said that the accident happens at 1:23 in the morning. Well, Nikolai felt that there were officials that were in Kiev that day, and he felt that it would not be good if they ran the test, something were to go wrong or not go well, because they have to power down the reactor. They're basically trying to see if the reactor is powered down, can they use an alternative source of power? He felt that it would not be a good idea to run it during the day because they didn't want any of the power to go down during the cities or in the city when officials were going to be in the surrounding area. The problem with this is the people who were briefed on the safety of doing this reactor power down were the day shift. The day shift were the only ones who got the briefing. So when the night crew came in, they literally were looking at an annotated document that was hundreds of pages long that from what I was able to gather, they were looking at it as notes that people were making during the day presentation, saying, so do this, actually this page, like move this over, don't do this, actually move this way. So you can imagine that a crew who's going in with less experience, because the night crew was the one who was basically just running maintenance, they were not really ready to run this test.
So the plan for the nuclear reactor was to make sure that we only had disasters during the daytime.
That's smart.
Yeah.
Smart.
Well,
More
that way
people are there
that way
to
you can
fix
see.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, true.
What's going on in there?
You want that scheduled.
Absolutely.
Was it not an operating power plant before?
Yes, it was operating. So it had been operating for years, but they had never given it a stress test if the cores went down in power, if the alternative sources would go in. And so we'll get into that. So Nikolai Fomin was the one who made the decision. So obviously Viktor owns the plant. He was aware of the fact that the cores should have been tested earlier, never tested. That's why he got in trouble. Nikolai gets in trouble because he basically threw this on the night shift and said, I'm sure it'll be fine. Just on the pride of the fact that this is Soviet technology, so it will withstand. There's no way that it's going to go. This is the most advanced technology in the history of man when it comes to power. There's
Everybody's saying
issues.
so. People say that all the time. It's the greatest technology.
It's only the greatest.
There was a big boat once, right? It's supposed to be real good.
Exactly.
Look at Jurassic Park.
That's right. He also received a sentence for 10 years and also attempted to take his own life several times before the trial went on due to the shame of the experience. Following his sentence, he was actually placed in a psychiatric hospital. He was released early and shockingly went to work at another power plant up until the early 2000s. So he ended up kind of continuing.
You got to
his
stick
work.
with your expertise.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
good at one thing, even if that one thing went bad once.
Well, yeah. Now he knows what not to do.
Yeah.
It makes you got to learn from your mistakes.
We don't want it to ruin his future.
Everybody has to have the chance to revise.
Yes. Our last character to introduce for right now is Anatoly Dyatlov. He also gets a 10-year sentence for this, and he's one that I think takes a lot of the blame for the disaster because he was the person in charge of the night shift when they were testing the cores. And the thing that's tough is going back to the show for just a second. He's very much painted as this villainous, prideful character who just kept pushing no matter what. And where a lot of historians would disagree is he was really the only person who knew point to point what you did to actually power down the reactors and bring things back into the fold, to where the night staff was looking to him saying, and then do we do this? And then do we do this? And he was kind of guiding the entire thing. So he was relied on for his expertise at the time, where everybody was kind of asking him, we can't really read the documents that we were given from the day shift, so what should we be doing? And so he was sentenced to 10 years in prison as well for this. So to outline what happened, give me a moment here as I assemble what happened that, I guess, early morning. The issue came from the lower power and safety rods, which dip into this core, which slow down the neutron reactions between the uranium, which almost completely stopped the core. So they were trying to power this thing down to where it was at levels of about 700. Unfortunately, I'm lapsing on the 700 what exactly. I don't want to say megatons. Maybe Dawn can sub in. I don't want to say megatons, and that's like not anywhere near, because I think that's an explosion directly. But they had to be powered down to about 700, and they noticed that the core was actually going to be approaching zero, and they were fearing that it was never going to power back up again. So Dyatlov instructed them to take out the safety rods. Like he just said, okay, the cores are about to go down, take out the safety rods. The minimum amount of rods, and I think that there was close to 100 that were in the core. He said, take out as many of the rods as we can. Let's go to about 6. Minimum for safety standards, these cores needed to be at 12. Like 12 was the absolute bare minimum, and even that was pushing all safety regulations. And again, because he didn't want to be the person responsible for the core going down, he said, go ahead and put that down to 6. The core instantly starts reacting. It starts to heat back up. But what they notice is it's not heating back up at an additional rate. It's at an exponential rate. So where they're seeing it jump from 700. Now we're in the 5,000s almost instantly. It's heating up, and now we're past 15,000. And it just continues to go. The core is heating at such a rapid rate that people start freaking out, obviously, in the terminal, saying like, okay, this is accelerating at a rate that we don't know exactly what we're supposed to do. So because this happens, and they know that meltdown is imminent, there is a famous button, which I never thought I would talk about a famous button, but the AZ5 core shutdown button, which is like the only one that's like, it's indicated there's this red button that's in the corner, is pressed by one of the officials that is on site at the time, designed to shut down this reactor. It causes a surge instead of a core slowdown. Like the numbers jump again, leading to a gigantic steam explosion in the core, which leads to a full-blown meltdown. It took exactly 18 seconds for the core to explode. The reactor design is called an RBMK, which is Reactor Bolshoi Moshchonshy Kanali.
You did great.
Thank you.
Definitely good.
Just as good as my subtitle translation, which had very serious flaw designs, which this is something called a positive void coefficient, meaning it could become more reactive as it lost coolant. And the thing that they hadn't accounted for is the fact that even though these rods were tipped in or are boron in their construction, the tips of them have graphite in them. And that apparently is where the reaction happened, is because of the graphite hit. Like once those went back in at such an impact at the levels that it was at, it heated up the graphite, which caused the explosion. The top of the core is a 1,000 ton, which is insane to think about, but is an 1,000 ton core top that was there that shattered into hundreds of thousands of pieces instantly, just destroying everything that was in the side. Now, this is just one of the reactors. So as this explodes and goes up, the people that are in the control maintenance room feel the shake of the building instantly. That there's a reaction of like, okay, clearly this thing has exploded. But right away, the mood that was in the room, from what the accounts seem, from people that had worked with him, had set. You're laughing. Right?
The mood that was in the room. Oh, we work at a nuclear reactor that just melted down. How are you feeling, Sergey?
I can't wait to be written about. They're like, boys, we made it. We're the most famous technicians in the world.
Or infamous. Yeah, that's right. So once this happens, the accounts waver from different people that were written about in this book called Shadows of Chernobyl. But it seems that immediately what people started to do, and this is why we talk about the cover-ups, is immediately the concern was there had to have been an accident where something has fallen or something has moved in such a way that like something's broken in the building. But there's no way that this core is broken down. Like the overall conversation that had happened is surely there's some other accident that had happened. And instantly the conversation becomes, so go check it out. So who is going to be the person that goes in and takes the brunt of a potential open core nuclear reactor that's like exploded in this building? And the thing that I find the most interesting is if you don't go, you are saying that the Soviet Union has created technology that's failed. If you do go, you face the potential of taking on what ends up being 15,000 Rickens. I think I have the pronunciation on that one correct.
You do.
Good. Rickens of nuclear radiation that takes it on. So the group that goes in and decides to brave this goes in with measuring devices that only measure 3.6 rate guns. So when they go in, they take the temperature of the room essentially as they're approaching. It hits 3.6 and breaks immediately. And the reports that follow in this basically say it's measuring at 3.6. To give you an idea, 400 ray guns is a lethal dose of radiation that, like, if you're exposed to that, you're looking at a lethal dose. And the building is, like measuring at the core at 15,000 at this time. So immediately upon the reactor exploding, the issue is not safety. The issue is not we need to do everything that we can stop this meltdown. There's a duplicity in we not only need to figure out if this thing has melted down, but also who's going to be the first person that even suggests this. And this is where I start to, kind of spin the wheels on like, what universe are we living in that the worst disaster in history has ever happened and people are frozen in their fear of saying anything against the Soviet Union?
I feel like that's a fairly common reaction. Like, have you ever like
fear of the Soviet Union?
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're still unpacking it, Don, to this day. But I mean, like, have you ever made an accident, right? Or like, it could be a small thing, maybe it could be a larger thing. But I feel like for a moment, you give yourself a grace period where you pretend the world is such that accident didn't happen or it's somehow not your fault, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I'm thinking, the first one that comes to my mind is like, I accidentally broke the stained glass windows set into my buddy's front door to a house he was renting in college. I just like slammed the door shut and they like all shattered. And I was like, well, clearly that wasn't me because I didn't close the door any harder than I usually do. Clearly there was a fracture in the glass and it was right. Like, for a moment, I understand the impulse to like, no, wait, like to fantasize that somehow that's not actually what's happened.
Mm-hmm. I'm thinking of like when someone is not used to doing an activity like cooking, right?
Yeah. Right. Yes.
And the pan catches on fire or you cut your finger or whatever. Like, there's a moment where a new cook would freeze and like not be sure what to do. Like, they probably intellectually, like, you quiz them beforehand, know how to put out a fire. But like when it happens, there's that moment of like, how did this happen? Is this happening? Like, they don't, where, the experienced cook that can see that and like, it's just part of the motion to put it out and to know what to do, which is, I guess, the point of having drills and stuff, right? Yes. So that way, when the emergencies actually happen, like, we file the kids out aside in the school, right?
Yep.
So that way, if a fire ever actually happened, they know where to go and how to do it. So it's not something that they're trying to figure out. Sounds like in this case, though, we were trying to figure it out all at the same time.
Absolutely. And something that I should very much give the grace to is these aren't people that are going into their jobs on a day-to-day basis and thinking, I'm an emergency responder. Their job is to run a power plant. And run it. Nerds. If this had been some superheroes, this would have been different. But at least we got nuclear wolves out of it. Mm-hmm. That's right.
And also like a still nascent technology, right?
Correct.
Sure, it's been around for a couple decades now, but I mean, in this capacity to this extent, right? I guess like 3 Mile Island was a little bit before this, right? Mm-hmm. That was like what?
In the 73. Yeah. But it's a mysterious killer though too, right? So like,
right.
The explosion happens and your job is to go into the basement and see what it looks like. Like it's not going to look like anything. It's just going to be death.
Correct.
But you're not going to see it. You're not going to
right.
So
yeah. And I think that that's where, because of course, Cold War is going to touch this a little bit. Living in Soviet Russia is going to touch this a little bit because there's so many layers of continue on and the state moves on that probably is there as well. That's also affecting this because your job and your labor is everything, And so I would imagine too, there's a certain amount of like, and I think that's why you would walk in, whereas like somebody is not going to catch it's a very morbid comparison, but you're not going to catch a bullet for like a register at a Target probably as like a minimum wage worker. Absolutely terrible comparison. Forgive me. But yeah, these people, I mean, their identity is like what they do for the state in a sense. And so I think that leads to a lot of this. Shall I elaborate on how this gets worse?
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I can't turn my eyes away.
The word you're looking for before is megawatt thermal. 700 megawatt thermal is what it was supposed to come down to. It actually dipped to 30.
Yes, at a certain point, right? And then Zero's core is like completely
right. So when it got down to 30, they panic and they're like, "Oh, throw gas on it," and that's why it went out. It was the operation. It was designed to operate at 3,200 megawatt thermal. So when you're talking about it getting up to 5,000 and then 15,000, like those are the pressures that cause the actual accident.
Yes. So naturally, the evening looks fairly insane. We have a gigantic response of firefighters who are going to, they see the flames. Firefighters are called to take care of the explosion. I don't know if this is your immediate thought, but one of the things that I considered immediately is like, okay, well, what suits are you wearing if you're living in a town like this and you need to go take care of
Armani?
Yep. Absolutely. So they rolled up in their Armani suits to put this out. And luckily, they're really great at protecting radiation, at least from the poor who can't afford
lead-lined Armani.
That's right. But no, they're in the standard civilian affair of, cotton, rubber, and thermal-based clothing that's used to protect from fire. But nuclear radiation is a completely different beast, to say the least. So as water is being applied to the flames, like I said earlier, steam is inherent in this reaction. And so even though some of the auxiliary flames that are on the outsides of the core are going out, any of the water that is hitting the core directly from the flame, it probably is exacerbating the effects of what is happening at the time. And immediately phone calls start going out to Soviet officials of like, we need to figure out what we're going to do about this. Unfortunately, Soviet authorities delayed their response of talking about this. And one of the things that was postulated is we should evacuate the city of Pripyat, which had 49,000 civilians that were living and mostly were associated with the power plant and its workers that were the area. But it was not evacuated until 36 hours later. What caused the USSR to respond to the information being leaked was Sweden was actually getting levels of radiation in the following days that were appearing in their atmosphere. And they had released the information that was happening, had heard through the grapevine that things had gone south with one of the reactors in Russia, which forced the USSR to make a statement. Boris Sherbina, who was one of the officials that was on this, was asked to consider this evacuation. And before it happened, he was quoted as saying, "Why are you being so alarmist?" And again, there's a person who knows about the flames and knew what was going on. And when told that the core exploded, he was quoted as saying, "How will we recover from the embarrassment of this situation?" When thinking of people being evacuated, potential news footage of that being leaked, and him going through. And this is one official, of course, but you imagine if this is the overall conversation that's in the room, there is a delay in the response to what is known as the greatest disaster of all time because of a certain amount of pride and state that is involved in this. And so, yes, 2 days later, essentially, when morning news comes out with that, the USSR releases a statement and evacuations begin. And unfortunately, there's not quite a way to document the deaths and cancer that followed this, other than the fact that there's an estimate that a very large portion of the individuals, it's like close to half, dealt with some kind of cancerous consequence that was there. And a lot of that could have been avoided had they acted immediately on this. So to go back to the, new chef, I suppose, if you're thinking about people that are dealing with the Cold War and the fact that, the phone, I think immediately of the phone in
Strangelove.
Yes, Strangelove, right? Like the fact that this is probably something that you're dealing with at all hours of the night, at all times, in having these conversations. It seems like there's a direct correlation to pride was more important in this case.
Which is not at all surprising to somebody who lived through the 1980s. And it was a common reaction from the Soviet Union. Like there's I can't remember the name. There's the submarine that sank off the in
Red
the Pacific
October.
Ocean. Not that one.
Thanks for bringing Clancy into it.
And they just kept denying that it had happened, even though all these other countries were offering to help rescue the men, and they refused to admit that it happened and just let the men die. I can't remember the name.
It's I don't know. I'm always interested in to what extent it's the case today. I mean, I know the Soviet Union was sort of notoriously secretive, and it sort of felt like it was alone on the world stage, right? Like everyone was its enemy, more or less. And I'm sure that fueled a lot of that. But I do feel like international relations are frequently more like kids on a schoolyard than we give it credit. The nations do have personalities. They are personified in many ways by their heads of state or their diplomatic teams and embassies and things like that. And I think sometimes we're like, oh, well, clearly those are all level-headed and logical people who are the best appointed to their job at any given time. But that's not always true. There is a lot of reputation at stake, and how a country is perceived is important, right? And because those things factor into how people, carry themselves in negotiations and deals, and it can give leverage, right? Well, your countries are the idiots who can't even keep their submarines afloat. So we will be less afraid of you and your capacity, and we feel like we can boss you around. These sorts of these are some of the motivations, I presume, for why they act this way, why nations sometimes act this way.
Right.
So the submarine I was thinking of was called K-129.
Okay.
And it sank in 1968. Yeah. And they just denied that it had sunk, and 98 men were on board. But here's the fun fact. The CIA, our CIA, went and got it and recovered some material from it. And this is the first documented use of the phrase, we can neither confirm nor deny the existence of such a project. It's called the Glomar response.
Wow. Oh, I didn't know it had an official title.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah. Anyway, so I don't think it's unusual at all that the Soviets deny. That was, I remember that being that, everyone was saying, no, we know something is happening. Let us come help. Let us come. And it was just a few days of no, there's nothing wrong.
Well, luckily the USSR does fess up, and they do give an incredibly specific statement following Sweden's reveal, by saying, as quoted, "An accident has occurred at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. One of the reactors has been damaged. Measures are being taken to eliminate the consequences." Move to the next news segment. And that was as far as it got immediately 2 days following that. So as you can imagine, probably a certain amount of confusion, fear unlocks. There are accounts at the hospital. The first people that needed to be responded to were the firefighters that had reacted to the fire that was going on. And something that I found is the firefighters didn't really have knowledge of the radiation because, again, they're just responding to a fire. And many of them died within weeks of combating the fire. Their clothes that were taken off by the nurses, speaking of people who react incredibly quickly, the nurses actually immediately took the clothes of the firefighters, knowing that they were radiated, and basically started to pile them up in a basement that is on location and on site. Those clothes are still there to this day, and the room cannot be opened because it is still emitting lethal levels of radiation just off of the clothes that were directly there next to the reactor. Ew. Yeah, it's some scary stuff. There are a few photographs that has been taken that you can look up, but it's absolutely terrifying. So we got to solve this problem, right?
It's part of the horror that it's not like other horror. Right, like
I think so.
It's like an uncanny horror.
It's not a horror of skeletons. It's not a horror of blood. It's the horror of clothes are dangerous. Mm-hmm. Like that's a really weird thing for the human mind to process.
Yes,
right?
Yeah, the unseen.
Not
killer.
for Hercules. Yeah. Daenerys poisoned him.
That's right. Let's get the follow-up of how Chernobyl and the tale of Hercules are connected. That's right. So the two of you are obviously very advanced scientists. How do you take care of this? What do you do?
Ooh, big time. You gotta get an antidote material, douse it in a non-fissile
club soda. Be right back.
Yeah.
And club soda was the answer. The club soda was taken directly.
That's why
to the
they
source.
have Coke there now.
That's right. Well, the solution that was initially offered was taking, I don't exaggerate, the entire stores of the USSR's sources of sand and boron. So they are extracting from beaches, and then the supplies of boron throughout the entire USSR are being helicoptered in and dropped over the site. That is,
you just got to bury it, right?
Essentially, right? Mm-hmm. And so because that was what the safety rods were made out of, they just said, like, we're going to need all the boron that we have as a resource in this country in order to map this. There was a challenge, though. The problem is this, you cannot fly directly over the radioactive source. So they basically had to track where wind was blowing and release these giant boxes of the sand and boron as close as they can get, knowing that a majority of it would miss. So this takes days upon days upon days of helicopters going through, including an accident where a helicopter made contact with a crane that was in the area, completely destroyed it. It falls to the ground and destroys itself there. The problem is, and this gets to the only pre-talk that I had with Don was he was excited to talk about the elephant's foot. And we'll get into that in
the
just
elephant's
a second.
Foot.
Yes, this boron.
It's the elephant in the room.
Yes, it's that room for sure. This boron has an interaction with the open core essentially and water, and it creates this substance called corium, which is basically like nuclear lava. That's the best way to put it. So it does slow it down. It isn't actively burning, but it turns it into this lava that continues to sink through basically the facility and soon into the earth.
It burns through the concrete. It's like it was 3,000 degrees Celsius.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so as this fire keeps burning and this lava is being created, it does end up slowing it down. And there's a gigantic deposit of it that looks like the bottom of an elephant's foot that's in the bottom of one of the reactors that's seeping through the cracks. There's only, I think, 2 photographs of it, but you can look it up. It is fascinating to look at. And it is directly if not the most deadly, one of the most deadly basically installations of radioactive participation that exists in the world.
There's only 2 photographs that exist from 1986. It's been photographed since then.
Okay, got it. So from the original, but
they didn't discover it until October, so it took them 6 months or so to get in there. If you're looking at the photo, Ron, it looks like we're not sure who the guy is, right? But the urban legend is that he died minutes later because he was standing close
next to it. Yeah,
it would have been emitting 10,000 rentgens of radiation, which they say is lethal in 30 seconds. So
that's great.
It's a dose of about 10 sieverts. But we think that that they figured out who it is. They think that that's R2 Kornaev, and he actually lived to 2010.
That's fantastic.
So
good on him.
Yeah, good for you,
saving us.
Thanks.
Yeah. Now, one thing we didn't discuss is all that water that was inside of the plant, and the fact that water is released as a mechanism for cooling down this reactor. As scientists continue to weigh in on this issue, there is a giant deposit of water that is underneath reactor 4. And as this lava is being made, the corium essentially, if it makes contact with this water, what was said in the officials' meeting is the impact and steam that it would release would blow the other 3 reactors that are in the building, causing basically creating a hole in the earth to where this is going to be a disaster that can potentially wipe out all of it, because of the atmosphere wiping out the entire continent is what was said. This led to 3 men, Olensky and Naleko, Valery Bespelov and Boris Baranov, who volunteered their lives to go down into the radioactive water in what is the equivalent of essentially wetsuits to empty the water sources from the area and redirect it so people would not have to endure this explosion. What was promised to them was 400 rubles, and the state would take care of their families for the rest of their lives in order to do this.
That's easy because that's only like 3 weeks.
No problem. Exactly. Yeah, we're done. And also good news following that, the elephant's foot photograph gentleman, the only one who is recorded to have died was in 2005. Boris passed away of a heart attack. The 2 others, if medical records keep up and what we can take, are probably still alive to this day.
Nice.
So yeah, those guys have made it out okay. But there was 600,000 people between tunneling sources of water away, making sure that water supplies weren't contaminated from this, that were assigned to the job and were involved in these containment efforts. And of course, the question on everybody's mind is, how much radiation am I going to be exposed to? The workers who were clearing the graphite from the top of the building from the exploded core basically took 90-second shifts in which they were released from a helicopter, pushed the material back into the core, into the lava, and then would be escorted off. But there are records of several of these people saying, I want to go back again. And so there was somebody who went back at least 30 times because of the amount of pride that he had, knowing that it would still be lethal for him to take it because he wanted to do this for his country. And I guess I think about it in terms of service and the way like a soldier would give his life for war. It seems like the amount of pride that people would take in doing this is like insurmountable for this being an accident instead of this being necessarily a cause. But I guess it is a cause in some respects.
It's so slow. It's like the, which you'll know, which Star Trek movie is it where Spock has to go into the right.
Is that Khan?
I don't know, but you see him melting, right? And like the effects of radiation happening immediately. In real life, it doesn't happen like that.
Yeah,
like your lethal dose of radiation is like it's not going to explode you instantly. Right. It's going to be something. So especially for someone who maybe as a Soviet soldier in the 1980s may not have like the most academic instruction about the dangers of radiation. Like, what's there to be afraid of? Why are we only here for 90 seconds?
Right.
Like, it's fine. I'm not that right. So I don't know if that could play into it too. Like, not to downplay the pride that I'm sure they had in sacrificing themselves, because there were definitely scientists who knew, like Karnaev, for example, knew that he was standing next to his death when he was going down to look at the element's foot.
Yes.
But so he was going in eyes open. I don't know that everybody involved in the cleanup was going in eyes open.
Yeah. And how they were coerced into working on it. I mean, yeah, there's so many different ways of kind of taking it. And even Dyatlov, who was, again, our person who was orchestrating the test that was being done, he did die of cancer, but he died of cancer at 70. So he still had many years of his life that he lived out following that as it happened. So to this day, what we're looking at is, I've mentioned it earlier, but essentially what is called the sarcophagus is they built this gigantic structure that was around the plant to contain the radiation, which they've just had to replace because so many of the radioactive elements have actually destroyed it that it just kind of keeps having to be replaced. But there's so many facets of this that like I find fascinating that I haven't even begun to kind of dip into, like the fact that now there is the possibility that you can tour some of the areas near Chernobyl where the disaster happened. The fact that we now are looking, again, if Gorbachev is saying this is the end of the Soviet Union, because this is such a kind of egg on the face in this moment of we didn't take care of what we needed to, but also an unprecedented disaster that mirrors nothing. I mean, there's just never been, there had never been a disaster of that size and still hasn't to this day, even with other nuclear power plants malfunctioning up to this point. But you
keep calling it a big disaster. How many people died?
Do I have that on here? Wow. Let me see. I should. I certainly hope I do. Immediate death toll. The immediate death toll was only 31 people.
See, it's fine.
31.
It's not that big a disaster. I've seen bigger disasters than that.
I'd love access to Don's internal arithmetic for calculating the disaster.
Although I also have
1,500 people on the Titanic. That's pretty great disaster.
Yeah, good point. Then what have we learned today? The Titanic, Leo really had it right.
It's all the hubris of man.
Yeah.
All of these linked.
The WHO does estimate that somewhere between 4,000 and 93,000 people, though, had their lives cut early because of this disaster. Belarus, Ukraine, and Russia saw a spike in thyroid cancer, especially among children exposed to radioactive iodine. And if not for the lives, can we also say that over 150,000 square kilometers were contaminated because of this?
It's a massive ecological disaster too, right?
Yes.
Like all that water runs into the ground, presumably, right? Like that's what groundwater tables that are poisoned for generations.
Yes,
potentially, right?
Right. Although interestingly, I saw that apparently only 1% of the livestock in the area actually have mutations. Like they generally have adapted to the area. There's really terrible accounts of soldiers going through and basically having to kill animals that were in the area because they didn't want them to continue to either be sources of milk production or to contaminate population. There's an absolutely horrific scene on the show of going through homes and having to find pets and basically take care of them, which I don't know and can't speak to the accuracy of, other than it's a great dramatic effect of how painful that must have been as part of your job. But yeah, that was one interesting fact, at least.
And it's kind of become like a little nature preserve now, though, right?
Yes, it has.
There's a type of horse, the Loshi Przewalskowa horse that was extinct in the 1960s, and they released them into the exclusion zone, and they have thrived.
Wait, what?
until now they're being poached, but for like the last 30 years they've been thriving in this area, and so have wolves and wildlife, and it's been a nature is healing.
I hope.
Wait, there was like an endangered horse, and they're like, throw him in the irradiated place. Like what?
Yeah, it kind of doesn't make sense to me as well. Yeah,
they did because they were looking for a refuge, and so it was free land.
Sure.
So yeah,
you're telling me there's not more free land in Russia?
I'm guessing real estate prices are pretty low.
It's a very tiny country. It's very tiny.
That's right. But yeah, I mean, disaster, a reaction to disaster. Obviously, we're talking at the beginning of this about our childhood cover-ups of different colored pens, butter, and breaking somebody's toe. You had the worst one, Ron. Sorry to tell you, to say the least. You committed violence, but yeah, it's immeasurable the amount of damage that can be done for not taking responsibility for actions. It seems. I think that's the thing that I find the most horrific. But I was curious your takes on it as well.
Well, the same amount of damage would have happened if they had, right? Like, because the reactor exploded as much as it exploded, right?
Yes.
And you're, I think, criticizing the Soviets for not reacting quickly enough and spending time denying it instead of cleaning it up. And you're right. I'm not denying that at all, but like, that's just a matter of a few hours after a disaster had already happened. Like, so would it have, if they had admitted it the instant that it happened and began cleaning it up, would it have been better, or it just would have been, because I don't know, in the 1980s, it's the thing about nuclear. It's why why we've shut down so many nuclear plants now, is because it's a lot dirtier, and we don't know what to do with it.
Right.
Like, when it runs away, like, there's literally nothing you can do but just to watch.
Yep.
Because you can't throw water on it, you can't cool it down, you literally just have to watch until it runs itself out. And it's the work of the humans to have concentrated it so much into one tiny little, spot that it becomes so powerful.
Yeah, it is like I don't know. It's one of those weird things. I guess you were talking earlier about how the Soviet Union went through like this process of trying to assign blame, right? Like, who's responsible for this? Who's made the mistake? I don't feel like an impulse to blame anyone, right? Like clearly mistakes were made, but I don't know. Like it's a bad mistake. It's a big mistake. But like, it is just so not like it's the same with like, going back to the Titanic. Is there someone we can actually blame? Like, sure, someone made a call and the call went bad, but I'm also interested in this idea that like, well, who do we blame for this thing, right? The idea that we need to blame, that we need to take corrective action for something that, just got away from people, right? It is just probably beyond the scope of people to handle fully, right? It was always going to happen. There was always going to be a nuclear power plant accident somewhere, right? There has continued to be, right? We did not learn all the lessons from Chernobyl, and there will not ever be another accident like this, right? As Fukushima proved, right? And when was that? 2011?
Yes.
Something like that. So I don't know. It's just sort of like, it's just a tragedy to me. There's no like sort of corrective way to think about it. I guess surely there are lessons. I don't super know what they are though. You're talking about like the government cover up part, and I feel like also there's an element of like the Soviet Union didn't release a lot of this info. Like, we know a lot more about it now than we did like immediately afterwards, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I don't know to what extent maybe like that would have been more beneficial for everyone to have access to fully study the magnitude of the situation and how that could have improved nuclear safety regulations in other countries, or even if Russia learned from this, or the Soviet Union learned from this and started implementing new protocols in their other plants. Do we know much about that? Like, is there a silver lining somewhere? Is there a silver sarcophagus that we can place on this?
Silver lining
conversation
being put into silver sarcophagus really takes it even darker.
I don't know what they are, because I have not done research on it, but I am positive that there were changes made in power plants around the world based upon what happened here.
Yeah.
And the fact that Fukushima was like, it blew, but it was a much smaller event than Chernobyl was. But there was a couple of days we weren't sure that it was going to be. So
yeah.
Yep.
But I think the lesson is make sure you pay attention to the omens.
100%.
The omens?
Oh yeah.
Did you
Russian omens?
Did you read about the blackbird of Chernobyl?
No, I just decided to be really confident. Absolutely, to get wrong.
That's what I would have done. I was
absolutely.
so now I'm the idiot. I don't know about the omens.
No, tell me about that.
So just prior to the disaster, 3 days prior, and for the 3 days prior, just before, people saw this giant 6 to 7 foot black bird with glowing eyes. And they only saw it before the disaster. And then once it happened, no one has ever seen it since.
It is the disaster now.
Mm-hmm.
Damn, that's a whole nother aspect of this is like how people mythologize like disasters, right? And how if like maybe the thing I'm struggling for, which is like, what is the nice little bow tie lesson we can learn from a tragedy like this? People will insert that themselves, right? Like, oh,
Correct.
well, there was a bird. You should have known about the bird. Like,
6 foot bird.
yeah, that's a big bird. I know.
It's a big bird.
It's a huge bird. I'm
It is.
not saying it's not a huge bird.
It's not the only time that bird's ever appeared.
Oh, let me guess. The Shackleton's race to the South Pole.
The West Virginia Silver Bridge disaster, 1966.
Oh, that's the Mothman. You're talking
is.
about Mothman now.
Mothman was
Mothman was
at
at Chernobyl?
He was at Chernobyl.
Oh, I did. You should have started with that, Doug. Doug, can you go back and re-examine this, but make sure Mothman is the protagonist?
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna go ahead and start over. How you guys doing today?
Do the thing about the toes, and then talk about West Virginia.
Country roads take me home. Absolutely. Yeah, I don't necessarily have something there. I think I get hung up, obviously, on the evacuation. Like, we need to get people out of there way faster. Some of the recorded facts about it would be way too embarrassing to do this. Maybe maybe I do. Yeah, maybe I do mythologize a bit because my sense of justice is like, we need to help people immediately.
No, I think you're 100%. I think that impulse is 100% right. Like, obviously, reaction times are important in these things, and it would have been nice if they had kind of acknowledged. I mean, it would have been better to acknowledge what's happening and get things moving a little bit faster, right?
Yeah.
But
There's your answer.
I like it. Well, I'd like to tell you both that
Move faster.
Yes, please, first and foremost, move faster. But if my Chernobyl ever burns down, I hope that the two of you are with me to keep me cool-headed through it.
Why would you want me with you at a burning Chernobyl?
You're in a
That's a terrible thing to wish.
You're in an Armani suit though, so you'll be fine.
yeah.
I'll be safe.
Yeah.
I'm with you. Put me in the culvert. I'll look at the foot for you, Doug.
Thank you guys so much for chatting with me today.
Dostoevsky.